Hello again. Well, this morning I'm in the attempt mode again. I want to talk about a teaching style that my brother John used very well and that sort of inspired this YouTube channel. Now, what he used was called Socratic questioning, and to be honest with you, I had that mentioned in some of my teacher training classes, but they never really demonstrated it. They just said, it's very popular, Socratic questioning, and then left. Or maybe they taught me about it and it just didn't really strike me very well because I had a really good Socratic questioner in my family, and so their description of it and my experience of it were slightly different. John liked to pop quizzes on people. He liked to ask them questions. He might ask a question like, what's the best romantic comedy you ever saw? Right? That's not Socratic questioning, that's just questioning. And it works very well to get people started. You ask them a question about something that interests them, something they like. They tend to respond positively. But Socratic questioning is a little bit different. Socratic questioning is a method of taking an assumption from a student or a speaker and questioning that speaker, questioning that student, and plumbing the depths of an idea. A Socratic questioner can lead students to say things that they're prepared for them to say, and then they have another question that leads them further into reasoning. Socratic questioning is so old that everybody knows about it, and it's so fantastically powerful that if you do it really well, it can get you killed, as it did its inventor, or at least its perfecter, Socrates. He was so good at questioning his students that he taught them how to think, and then once they learned how to think, everybody in power thought, we got to kill this guy, he's teaching people how to think. So I advise anybody listening to this that's considering doing Socratic questioning, be prepared. It might bring out some very ugly stuff. And so I'm going to use a moment that John and I actually discussed before he left to sort of experiment with explaining how Socratic questioning might work and why it might be powerful and at the same time dangerous. So on one of his last visits here, John and I were talking, and he mentioned someone that is sort of a relative, a man. And this man said something to John that horrified him. Now, that wasn't his words, that's my words. I knew it horrified him just by the way he explained it to me. This person said, democracy's over. It's not going to work anymore. And said it in such a hateful and flippant way that John decided at that moment that he wasn't going to discuss it any further, and he also was going to avoid that person probably for the rest of his life. And that's not how John would have responded to a student. If a student had said that to him, he would not have gotten upset. He would have questioned the student. And so I'm going to sort of artificially place that rather difficult moment of John's into an artificial classroom and explain how John might have questioned the man if the man were a student in his class. Because, of course, he was not in a classroom with the man. He was in the world with the man. And there was something else that was revealed in what the man was saying and doing that I won't go into, but definitely made John fully aware of the level of hate that he was dealing with. It wasn't just that democracy was over. There were other things going on. So, let's say a student said that. in a class. Democracy is over. It doesn't work anymore. Well, what might the question be? What do you mean it's over? Does democracy not work? Is that what you're saying? Yeah, it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all? Well, it works a little. What's bad about democracy? What's the problem with it? Why isn't it as functional as it ought to be? Well, now this is just my imagination of what this student might say. The student might say, well, it's slow. It doesn't change quickly. It's not efficient. It's kind of bumbling. And it grinds so slowly that the changes that need to take place don't. Changes need to take place fast because this is a fast-paced world. So that's a pretty solid argument. So then the next question might be, all right, fair enough. Is it that it's three co-equal branches that is the problem that makes it slow? Yeah, it's the co-equal branches. They make it slow. You have to have a lot of agreement, and that's just not very useful because nobody ever agrees with anybody. Proof is this conversation. Fair enough. So politicians have always had to deal with this idea of compromise, and compromise feels like it works counter to principle, and so it's really easy to point your finger at politicians and say they're evil, they compromise, they don't play fair, and they're inefficient, and they're fraudulent, and all of that. Okay, fair enough, all of that. Let's give that might be true. Of the three branches, which is the least likely to be slow and difficult? Well, of course, the executive. Now, what are the other two branches again? Well, in Article 1 of the Constitution, the first branch of government is the legislative, Congress, right? And it has the responsibility of the purse strings and declaring war and representing the people and all that. The second branch is the executive, and that's the president. The president's job is to sign or veto bills and to administer the laws as the Congress has passed them. And finally, there's the judicial, and that's to test the laws against the Constitution. So, is the Constitution a good document? Is it just that we need to revise it? Because that has been built in. We're allowed to revise it. We have. And of course, one of the things that's sort of interesting about the document is, except for the preamble, it's written in future tense because even when they ratified it, they realized they weren't really achieving all that it suggested. But let's say we get rid of two and we just keep the executive branch. It's the fast branch. It's the one that can really move. And we vest all those powers in that branch. Well, if we did that, we'd actually be returning to a very old system, right? What would that most resemble? Well, monarchy. That's what monarchy looks like. There's a single powerful leader who makes decisions for the state. So, okay. Monarchy. It's an interesting idea. Let's see. Why didn't the framers who wrote the Constitution go ahead and write a monarchical constitution? Well, because they saw monarchy as dangerous. They wanted to get out from under monarchy because the monarchies they had experienced were essentially unjust, because kings operated in the idea that what they said and wanted was the law. That King George, when he said, I'm going to tax you and not represent you, that's the law, and because I'm the king, I'm right, and you can just suck it up and deal with it. So there's some problems with that, obviously, right? I mean, we broke away from that. Maybe it was just that the kingship in the British Isles was not a good model. Maybe there's a better model of kingship. Maybe there's a kingship with justice at its center. Hey, now that might work, right? Put justice and truth at the center of the monarchy, and you're bound to get a good king and an efficient government. Hey, that might work, right? I wonder if there ever was a government that was like that. Go ahead, say it. Go ahead, say it. There was. There was an ancient government like that. It was the kingdom of Israel. Israel, in the first covenant, had actually a judiciary at first. When Abraham's people were led out of Egypt and began the nation of Israel, they were told, I'm going to be your king by the God of the universe. I'm going to be your king. I'm going to give you the best possible laws. I'm going to give you the best possible practices. And I'm going to teach you how to be a people that is both just and merciful. Hey, that would work, right? But strangely enough, the God of the universe didn't tell them that they needed a king. That actually happened a little differently. At first, the God of the universe said, I'm your king, and you're going to have judges in order to make decisions about day-to-day conflicts. Fair enough? But Israel didn't like that. See, everybody around them had kings. And this judge system, it was multiple leaders. There wasn't any one most powerful person that led the way. Oh, that most powerful thing, that might be a problem, right? Because people think they're powerful, and in fact, God was saying, no, real power resides in God. But if you could concentrate power in a king that had been trained under the laws of justice and God, then you'd have a fantastic model. You'd have the perfect model, a benevolent and just king leading a nation. So is that how it worked out? No, that's not how it worked out. The 38 kings of Israel, who are raised in the culture of justice, truth, and mercy, of those 38 kings, 33 did evil in the sight of the Lord. Just 5 did good. Just 5. That's the problem with monarchy. It's efficient and it's cruel. It's not about justice. It's about the self of the king. And God actually told his people, buddies, it's not going to be what you think it's going to be. Now, this is something you couldn't share in a typical classroom. You'd have to be in a religious classroom, or maybe, on the YouTube. So this is what the scripture said from God on what would happen if they had a king. And I'm going to try to find it here, if I can. So where is it? The problem is that kings don't adhere to what they're supposed to do. They're surrounded by people who tell them what they want to hear and who give them what they want and who betray what they should be doing for their people. Here's what God said would happen if the land of Israel got a king. There will be the ways of the king who will reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them to his chariots, and to be his horsemen, and to run before his chariots. And he will appoint for himself commanders of thousands and commanders of 50s, and some to plow his ground and to reap his harvest and to make his implements of war and the equipment of his chariots. He will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and vineyards and olive orchards and give them to his servants. He will take the 10th of your grain and of your vineyards and give it to his officers and to his servants. He will take your male servants and female servants and the best of your young men and your donkeys and put them to his work. He will take the 10th of your flocks, and you shall be his slaves. And in that day you will cry out because of your king, whom you have chosen for yourselves. But the Lord will not answer you in that day. The problem with having a king is a man. And even a king raised in the most just system of laws, like the Ten Commandments, won't put them before his own selfish desires. The reason the framers split apart the power of the nation was because split power is less likely to rain corruption down on the people. What we really need in this country is exactly what they used in the preamble: a more perfect union, established in justice, with domestic tranquility, with a common defense against enemies, and the blessing of freedom for us and all of those to come in the future. You see the problem, right? If you taught that lesson in a classroom now, it would make people who love the Ten Commandments furious. It's not a party thing. It's not a right or a left thing. It's a justice thing. And the problem with using Socratic questioning is it forces you to confront questions and answers that plumb the depths of human arrogance, selfishness, and sin. And on that sad note, I'll stop, because if I go on, I'm going to talk about things that have really got me upset. I hope to see you again, and I hope this little lesson on Socratic questioning is of some use. You gorgeous people.